Good afternoon, everyone. I think we can start slowly but surely. Welcome. First of all, I am Rebecca Damat. I am NCP for Cluster 6, which is about food, bioeconomy, natural resources, environment, agriculture, and for the WIDERA, which stands for Widening Participation and Strengthening the European Research Area under the Horizon Europe program. Together with Francisco Melo, who is NCP for Cluster 4 Industry, and EIC, we will host this session on enabling the circular economy under Horizon Europe and to find opportunities for enabling this circular economy. So to start with some house rules. On the right side of the screen, you have 4 little icons with chats, Q&A, polls, and people. We will ask you to ask all your questions under the Q&A icon. There's a dedicated time at the end of the session for us to answer them. You are really welcome to use the chat to introduce yourself, to network with the people here. Our lovely com team has put a poll together under the poll section. Please take 1 minute to answer it. And people, you can see the people attending this session. With this said, let's start. And there will be a bit of delay in the presentation. The PowerPoint is a bit heavy, but it will show up. So before going really in the deep of the session of circular economy, we wanted to start with the observation that has been made also this morning, but all around, that we are currently living a double crisis lately. So there's the environmental crisis, but also the pandemic, and this crisis is linked, and this comes from the many observations. These crises are linked to our way of living and the way we consume and reprocess to make the consumables. So these are, for instance, linked to mining for rare materials that end up in the IT tools we use, that then end up in the landfill, the drilling for petroleum, for plastic, that also is used for textile, and we have a lot of waste in the textile, etc. So these challenges, the environmental challenge and the pandemic now health sanitary situation are we are facing it everywhere and everyone, and circular economy is part of the solution to answer this crisis. Also, quick numbers, but they really speak for themselves. If we keep consuming, producing the way we do now, by 2050, we will need 3 times the size of Earth for sustaining the entire humanity. And also the way that resources are extracted and processed, it results in 90% of the loss of biodiversity and 50% of the total emission of total global emission of carbon. So really the way we as human function needs to be rethink, and there comes circular economy. With this said, today we will see how this circular economy can be enabled through Horizon Europe, but we will start with the evolution of the circular economy thematic under the EU agenda and the funding schemes, notably Horizon schemes, so 2020 and Europe, so you will understand where we came from and where we are heading better. So this is the first point. The second point is really on the opportunities in the Horizon Europe, and then conclusion and Q&A. So please don't forget, use the Q&A. If you have questions, we will answer them afterwards. So on the evolution of the thematic of circular economy, we will start with the 2015 Circular Economy Action Plan. Why? Because it's the first time, the first action plan that the Commission has published, where there is an ambitious proposal to cover the entire circular economy with the aim to close the loop and to cover the whole cycle from production and consumption and waste management from the market to secondary raw materials at European level. So 2015 is really a turning point for circular economy in the European mindset, and then in Horizon types of funding schemes. In this Circular Economy Action Plan in 2015, 5 priority areas have been identified, and these are the plastics, food waste, circular critical raw materials, biomass and bio-based products, and construction and demolition. So the Circular Economy Action Plan, the first one, was published 2015, and it was followed the next year by the first calls under Horizon 2020, contributing to the plan, contributing to circular economy as such. So we have here on that slide highlighted in different colors where these circular economy related calls were situated under the previous program. And I would like you to focus on the red and the orange, but what you see mostly is the green, and the green means absolutely no or very, very few relevant topics for circular economy. And there you can see a lot of thematic such as transport, health, society, secure society. All these were not targeted by circular economy, but if you focus on the orange, where you have a little number of relevance to circularity, there you can see that food, agriculture, maritime, water, bioeconomy, climate, environment, resource efficiency, raw materials were very much starting to target circular economy in the way the calls were written. But the most important one is the bottom one, and I hope you can see it and our faces don't block the view. But the red one is where circular economy is seen as a key aspect, where calls are really contributing to circular economy, and it's under the cross-cutting thematic under Horizon 2020. So what does it mean, cross-cutting? It is that the circular economy under the Circular Economy Action Plan, but Horizon 2020 also is envisaged as key cross-cutting aspects where the calls, for instance, we have a call on Industry 2020 in the circular economy to see how circular economy can boost the economic growth and renew the industrial capacities. So circular economy is seen more as a way under Horizon 2020 to consolidate a systemic approach for eco-innovation, for promoting new models of production and consumption, for trigger a disruptive transformation in the society. And really, it's about a general approach on circular economy as kind of a pretext for going towards eco design, eco innovation. Whereas you will see after, the mindset under Horizon Europe is totally different. So this is for 2015 and the subsequent calls under Horizon 2020. In 2019, this Circular Economy Action Plan has been reviewed and a report has been published. And the highlights from this report, what stands out is that circularity between 2015 and 2019 has arrived in new areas and new sectors. But also, circularity is needed to support new circular business models. The life cycle assessment of product is becoming norm. It's becoming very important. It's everywhere. But also there is a real need to broaden the eco-design framework, and research, innovation, and investment are really should be a priority for circularity to gain momentum. And this report on the implementation of the Circular Economy Action Plan, these highlights, they have been taken into account into the next period of circular economy on the horizon, under the European Union mindset, and then Horizon Europe. And there you can see, especially with 2019, the publication of the and adoption of the Green Deal strategy of the European Union. And then from now, Francisco will go.
Thank you, Rebecca, for the wonderful recap on the 2015 Circular Economy Action Plan. Can go actually back to the slide that you were showing before, please, because if you take a look at this, the report on the implementation of the Circular Economy Action Plan actually already paves the way to a new Circular Economy Action Plan. And if you can go now to the next slide, a circular economy action plan that is broader, more inclusive, and the new circular economy action plan actually upsurges under the European Green Deal, which is the new growth strategy for Europe that basically aims at decoupling economic growth from resource use. And the 2020 Circular Economy Action Plan, if you can go to the next slide, the 2021 is actually a key pillar of the Green Deal, and on the one hand becomes substantially broader and more inclusive, both in terms of themes and in terms of priority areas that now are called key value chains, and also more operational, both in terms of funding, strategy under the Horizon Europe, and on the associated complementary activities and actions to enabling an agenda to actually achieve a cleaner and more competitive Europe in collaboration with businesses, consumers, citizens, and civil society. So I will make a comparison. We will make kind of a comparison between what is the 2015 action plan, the 2015 action plan, and how this is reflected in the respective funding programs. So if you take a look at what is the 2020 CAP, the focus is on making circularity a key driver for a clean and more competitive Europe, no doubts about it. But in terms of core themes, it is substantially broader, both upstream and downstream. Upstream because it wants to make sustainable products the norm in the EU. So if you make sustainable products the norm, you will, of course, end up generating downstream less waste. Of course, in the meanwhile, you will have to empower consumers. Of course, circular economy has to make sense to the citizen, to the end users, and of course, focus on the lifetime of products with initiatives like, for example, the right to repair, etc., specific initiatives that came to legitimize and to further reinforce circular economy. In terms of the key product value chains that used to be the priority areas in the 2015 action plan, you can see that plastics is actually the only one that stays as it was, just plastics. All the other are either new areas or areas that were substantially broadened in terms of scope. So food, water, and nutrients, construction and buildings are areas that somehow existed, but they were broadened. Textiles, electronics, and ICT packaging, batteries, and vehicles are new areas that the new Circular Economy Action Plan brought about. Next slide, please. Along with the Circular Economy Action Plan, the need is actually to operationalize circular economy at the EU level. So new concepts and critical approaches come about to somehow complement the Circular Economy Action Plan. Some of them are the designing sustainable products, of course, very important. Circularity in the production process. Key products value chain is also a richer concept. They came to substitute priority areas. waste prevention and circularity, toxic free and safe by design, EU market for secondary raw materials, making circularity work for people, of course, and high impact intermediary products like steel, cement, some of them very important to what is our ecosystem in Luxembourg. Sure. So an action plan that is both broader and more operationalized. So how is this reflected in terms of the funding program? As you will be able to see in the next few slides, it's substantially different. While in the 2015 Circular Economy Action Plan, and then reflected in the 2016-17 work program, circular economy was the funding strategy was very much looking at circular economy as a cost-cutting aspect. On the current work program on Horizon Europe already, it is very much more operationalized to some of the key clusters. I would call your attention to cluster 4, digital industry and space, where circular economy is a key aspect, as well as it is in climate, energy, and mobility, in food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment. These are very, very important aspects. It means that there are tailored call section on even destinations focusing on circularity. Okay, so the big difference is that from the Green Deal onwards, we cannot envisage an industry without circular economy. We cannot envisage um, climate aspects, energy, batteries, mobility without circularity in their processes. We cannot envisage food bioeconomy, agriculture, or environment without the input of circularity. So circularity is more and more operationalized in these work programs and is specifically funded in some of them, either as coordination and support actions, innovation actions, or research and innovation actions. If you can go to the next slide, please, just to show you the difference between what was the Circular Economy Action Plan 2015-2020. So substantially broadened in terms of priority areas, now called key product value chains. And the next slide, please, where you can really see in terms of the work program that on the one hand, Horizon 2020 focused very much on circular economy as a cross-cutting activity. It still is, but on the Horizon Europe, it is very much more operationalized at the specific level of industry. As I said, there is no manufacturing without circular economy. There is no batteries without circularity processes, etc. So this is where we think the main difference is in terms of the strategy of the union. Next slide, please. And I think that we are now going to, okay. So circular economy become more and more legitimized and reinforced, not only with the Circular Economy Action Plan as one of the key pillars of the EU Green Deal, but also by developing and reinforcing some related key policy areas and connected strategies that actually came to reinforce this priority given more and more to circular economy. In terms of the policy areas, we have, of course, chemicals, circular economy itself, circular economy at the global level. The European Union is actually leading a global alliance to deal with circular economy, because this is, of course, a playing ground that is very uneven, very unleveled at the global level. And the European Union, of course, wants to push to ensure global leadership and pushing for circular economy aspect, sustainable development, waste and recycling, key aspect, and the plastics industry. In terms of the strategies, the Green Deal, of course, the overarching strategy informing this. The Circular Economy Action Plan, because the 2020 is actually an evolution from the previous one. The chemical strategy, the industrial strategy, plastic strategy, and zero pollution action plan are also connected strategies that came to reinforce it. Next slide, please. Now we want to show how circular economy as a key pillar of the European Green Deal is reflected into the funding strategy of the European Union under the Horizon Europe. So we will guide you through the key clusters where circular economy is funded and how it's funded, what are the key areas and sectors that are being funded circular economy wise. So if you can go to the next slide, and starting with cluster 4, we have a destination that is called climate neutral, circular and digitized production. So we have a specific session focusing on hubs for circularity. And we are funding here. We funded actually because it is already a past proposal at the Hubs for Circularity, a CSA, to kind of share best practices on circular economy. And already for 2022, circular flows for solid waste in urban environment, key aspect on digital industry and space. Next slide, please. We have another section on enabling circularity of resources in process industries, and we are talking about plastic weight, reducing environmental footprint and in extractive and processing value chains, and also digital tools to enhance tracking circular economy, of engineering of circular economy. Next slide, please. Still on cluster 4, we have another section on novel paradigms to establish resilient and circular value chains, circularity of composite materials, circular and low emission value chains through digitalization. Next slide. Another section, so as you can see, 4 sections that have a focus on circular economies quite a lot. So developing climate neutral and circular raw materials, and also climate neutral and circular innovative materials technologies, open innovation test beds, so how you test circular economy in real environment. Next slide, please. And still on no circular sections, we have something on functional electronics for green and circular economy, a research and innovation action. Now, very quickly to cluster 5. Cluster 5 on climate, energy, and mobility. We have calls on modeling the role of circular economy for climate change mitigation, on demonstration of innovative materials and recycling technologies to increase overall circularity of wind energy, and efficient and circular artificial photosynthesis. Topics on strengthening European coordination and circularity in the built environment, on sustainable circularity and zero emission mobility solutions, on circularity for next gen EV components, on study of circularity. I can not really see it, but to clean energy transition. I would say that is it. Next one. I would leave the word on to Rebecca again.
Yeah, and I take over. So the other big cluster on circular economy is the cluster 6, where in comparison to cluster 4 that we have just seen, which is very much focused on the industrial application, cluster 6 is more linked to other application linked to food, for instance, bioeconomy, natural resources. And there is one destination which is really strong on circular economy. It's circular economy and bioeconomy sector. And there you can see, and you will see in the future as well, a lot of these circular cities and region initiatives. This is a key initiative from the European Commission that stems from the Circular Economy Action Plan 2020, which has the aim to have circular economy implemented, tested, implemented, and replicated at the city level and at the region level. So throughout the years and the course for project, there will be different type of implementation of circular economy related actions. So this is really big if you want to test circular economy at already a big scale. City and region can be already big. So it is really about testing, putting in place, implementing. And this, you will see it now, but you will see it also in the future. Then, under this destination, you also can find calls on circular bio-based system for linear fossil-based products. There's also some products on collaboration with products and projects on collaboration with China and agriculture related wastewater and waste for circular bio-based solution. Still, we keep this idea of circular economy being linked to the bioeconomy as well. And there's also a lot of topic, like you can see here, topic on the circularity in the buildings and the construction sector, notably the waste of the construction. And so you have topics that are non-circular. It's not in the name, but they contribute strongly to circular economy. This one is quite interesting. It is about raising awareness of circular sustainable bioeconomy to support member states to develop the bioeconomy strategy. Because so there are um, many studies that have shown that circular economy and bioeconomy, it is really strong, it is really new, but all countries within the European Union, they are not at the same level. And the objective also of the circular economy action plan is to have the circular economy everywhere within the European members at the same level. Also, within Horizon Europe, you will see also different projects that will develop the kind of data set and the way of monitoring how circular economy is implementing and also supporting member states to implement it better or start implementing it depending where they stand. So this is for the different opportunities, current opportunities. Something that maybe needs to be said is that the calls for proposal are published every 2 years. We have had the 21-22, the 23-24 will be published around the autumn, but there are more opportunities coming, and this is not the end of it. So, as a conclusion, really what we see from a bit of history comparison from the different circular economy action plan and the evolution of the mindset of the European Union towards circular economy is that Horizon Europe aims at enabling circular economy in the entire society, and it covers a really vast value chains, really different value chains. You have the food value chain, you have the steel value chains. It goes in all direction of the circular economy. There are also three main clusters that cover circular economy in its application. So you have the cluster 4, which deals with the industrial and technological aspect of circular economy. You will also find raw material supply topics, construction with lower environmental impact, digital technologies everywhere. We had a great session this morning on the twin transition. Twins transition is also very important for the implementation of the circular economy. Under the cluster 6, you will find a more systemic approach across all sectors and also including the civil society. It covers also whole value chains, so including technological business, governance, social innovation. So it is at a different level than cluster 4. And then we have briefly mentioned, but we have the cluster 5 also, which plays an important role in the circular economy, notably regarding mobility, the batteries, electricity, construction of the green electricity, and all about climate science, also how they can support circular economy. The key takeaway we would like you to take home today is that Horizon Europe enables key initiatives well, that will enable circularity. So you have the hubs for circularity, notably in the industrial landscape and cluster 4, the initiatives on the circularity of resources in the process industries, the circular cities and region initiatives under cluster 6, with the implementation of circular solution at local scales, but also the development of indicators of data and data in order to monitor the implementation of circular economy and at some point reflect on it and see how to have it better, how to work towards the goals of the European Commission, which are, we have to say, is climate neutrality by 2050, so it's tomorrow. But also on the Horizon Europe, we see key notions bit everywhere in the different work programs, which are the circular value chains everywhere, really important, food value chains, industrial value chain, all thematic that are within the circular economy action plans. The value chains will need to be circular. The notion of strategic autonomy is also very important. We hear it a lot regarding defense, but there's also strategic autonomy for raw materials. We have seen in the last months that we are not so much autonomous and we are heavily impacted by international aspects. And with the strategic autonomy comes also the circular material streams for key materials such as plastic, textile, electronic, construction, buildings, packaging, single-use plastics, material streams that you find again within the circular economy action plan. Before going to the question, if you have any, please put them in the question tab and we will answer them in the minutes. We have here for you, if you want to deepen the subject, we have highlighted 3 EU events that will target circular economy. So you have Circular Economy Forum 10th and 11th February, the EU Industry Days in February as well, and the Circular Economy Stakeholder Conference beginning of March. So we have time for questions. If there is no questions, maybe I can ask one for Francisco. In the meantime, while you think about something to ask us, Francisco, we have seen the evolution until 2020 and the publication of the Circular Economy Action Plan. We also have seen the 21-22 calls and funding opportunities on the Horizon Europe. What do you think we will see in the near future on the Horizon Europe? What could be the future opportunities that our Luxembourg stakeholders should keep an eye on and be ready to jump on?
Yes, thank you for your question. I think that one of the things that the Circular Economy Action Plan brought together with the European Green Deal was the fact that circular economy is a cross-cutting aspect, but it's also sector-specific. So each one of the key product value chains has or will have circular economy as a sine qua non condition, if we can say so. So the funding strategy of circular economy at the sectoral level is to keep ongoing. Okay, I think that it will be reinforced. This reinforcement has been already testified between the Horizon 2020 program and the Horizon Europe First to Work programs that we had access to. From our perspective, or what will be the next work program specifically for cluster 4, which is the one that I'm dealing with, perhaps you can also help me reply to this question regarding cluster 6. But for cluster 4, for sure, in terms of what is the the manufacturing industry, focusing on smart factories with circular, carbon neutral, and resilient value loops. That will be one of the priorities as we seen them. Of course, as well, the implementation of systemic approaches to circular economy, supported both through uh, integrated demonstrators and associated business models for not only manufacturing but of also remanufacturing of products and their components. In terms of the construction sector, it is foreseen that further details will be requested in order to understand the requirements for resilience in construction works in line with circular economy principles. So things related to waste, construction waste, how you can reutilize it in the same sector, circular by design approaches, and scrap sorting processes, for example, in the steel sector, which is key for Luxembourg. Um, and also related to raw materials and the strategic autonomy of the union and its transition to climate neutral and circular economy. I mean, uh, it's key for the union that its strategic autonomy is based on a climate neutral approach, because that way a European Union will manage to will succeed in taking the lead of the process in terms of raw material usage and second raw material usage. So back to you perhaps for complementing with cluster 6.
Yes, and under cluster 6, so what we have had now was the highlight of the need of research for circularity in the plastic streams and the plastic value chain, but also the textile value chain, and some topics, some thematic that we haven't seen much but are very much important are, for instance, the furniture sector. It is also highlighted in the Circular Economy Action Plan, and we haven't seen it yet. The ICT related, the electronic related value chains will continue being research and innovation will continue to be made under Horizon Europe, how to tackle the waste, how to better use it, how to design it in a sustainable way, first and foremost. So what I see is, so circularity will continue to be funded, but also for the value chain, but also for the design way to have eco design from the beginning, and also the need to see how to treat the waste that has been created until now. I see that we have a question from Norbert. We are interested to develop further the urban mobility within circular city, but if I understand, we can apply anything only in next year. Um, this is the case. For now, there are no calls open from what we have shown. There are a lot of other calls, and we would need to see with you in the details what you want to do exactly, because maybe there is a call that has not been highlighted today. But from next year, there will be other calls opportunity. And if you are interested, don't hesitate to come to be in touch with us so that we can inform you as soon as we know, and you can prepare also better for how to participate and how to apply to the call.
Yes, I would also say that if I can complement your answer, Rebecca, that perhaps your interests fall very much on what is cluster 6 on circular regions and cities initiative on mobility as part of a wider smart city plan, perhaps, and Rebecca can tell you whether this is open or not. On the side of urban mobility, what we know neither of us is NCP for cluster 5, but I think that the next calls for mobility under cluster 5 are still later in the year, and this could perhaps be a possibility, depending, of course, and as Rebecca said, on your specific interests, because of course Horizon projects are different from EIC projects, and I know that you have been involved in the EIC type of projects, so perhaps knowing a bit better what you have in mind with this urban mobility within circular city might help us giving you the right guidelines to move on.
Yes, for the circular cities and region initiative, there are no calls open for the moment. They have all been, or they will be closed in the next week. So it's a bit late to think of them, but they will come. More will come in the next calls for proposal that we will know more in the current of the spring, in the spring, summer. So please be in touch so we can discuss it further and see with you how to prepare yourself to respond to such calls. I understand that our response corresponds to what you were expecting. Thank you, Norbert. I don't see any other questions. So,
I have actually one question for you, Rebecca, because
okay.
to see a bit if you can also understand this evolution within um, cluster 6, because as we have been seeing from Horizon 2020, where circular economy was kind of a cross-cutting issue with some general projects more on studying what is the circular economy subject, on producing systemic eco-innovative approaches. On Horizon Europe, we already see some sector-specific calls that, in the specific context, ask for specific reduction of X% of industrial waste, of reduction of 60% of GIG emissions. So, do you also testify this sort of evolution within cluster 6? Because as we all know, also there are some projects being requested by the Commission to help somehow building the monitoring framework of circular economy at the EU level. So, have you also testified this? What's on this for cluster 6?
Yeah, so under cluster 6, until now, there hasn't been any call where there has been asked that the project shows a real reduction of greenhouse gas emission, for instance. It is more, for instance, in the food value chain on the amount that is wasted. So a reduction of the food wasted. But there has not been such strict numbers, let's say, in the calls for proposal. There are other calls where the project will have to develop a way of collecting data to create European data set in order then to monitor the evolution, the implementation of a concept within circular economy. And so all the monitoring framework is also put together by the project. So this aspect is more important under cluster 6 than maybe under the industrial part of cluster 4. So that's a bit the difference. So you see, under Horizon Europe, there are really different types of activities that are funded and organized around the different projects. Great. Well, with that, we would like to thank you all for joining us today, all along the day, under this session. We hope you enjoyed. If you have any question, you have our contact details there. Please do not hesitate if you would like to discuss funding opportunities. Do not hesitate as well. We are here to help and support you into your journey with Horizon Europe. Thank you all. Wishing you a lovely afternoon and hope to see you very soon in real life.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.